Yeah, no, I was forbidden from leaving the house at 13. I mean at night.
You were a bubble boy.
Hello and welcome to the Vassals of Kingsgrave. We're back this time around to continue the future longest running reread of Harry Potter. We will be returning to our journey through Prisoner of Azkaban midway through, starting with Chapter 8, Flight of the Fat Lady, and concluding with Chapter 15, the Quidditch Final. My name is Zach, also known as Alias on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums, and joining me we have...
This is Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen on the forums.
Hi, this is Mary or Nymeria on the forums.
Hey, this is Matt, Varley on the forum.
This is Michal, inkasrain on the forum.
This is Paul, Pod's Plight on the forums.
And this is Zander, Lord Baron on the forums.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for joining me today. We may also have another Paul joining us in the future. We'll see. I will note before we begin that this will be a full spoiler discussion for Harry Potter, including all the books in the series, the films, and yes, even the Fantastic Beasts movies. Even though I myself have not seen The Crimes of Grindelwald, though I don't really care what happens in that. Without
You
further
can listen
ado,
to the Crimes of Grindelwald VOK
Yes.
Review podcast.
you can do that. You can do that if you wish. So without further ado, let us begin with Matt taking us through Chapter 8, The Flight of the Fat Lady.
So we got a rundown of the classes. Defense Against the Dark Arts is great now that they have a real professor, but the Slytherins hate Lupin and make fun of his patched robes. Potions is awful because Snape sucks. Divination is bad. Trelawney sucks. And Care of the Magical Creatures now sucks because Hagrid lost his mojo and teaching bobber worms. Quidditch is about to start up, so of course we have to get a rundown of what the fuck Quidditch is again. Hogsmeade's weekends are starting up, and Ron suggests that Harry have McGonagall sign his permission slip. At this point, Crookshanks attacks Scabbers after Ron says that Scabbers is in his backpack. McGonagall says she can't sign the permission slip to Hogsmeade, so Harry's now stuck. He runs into Lupin. So Harry goes into Lupin's office where he sees a Grindylow, which will become very important in the last book to find out who Big Potter is. When Harry asks him why he stepped in against the Bogart, Lupin says that not to take the shape of Lord Voldemort, but Harry thinks it would take the shape of Dementor. Lupin says this is very wise because it suggests that Harry only fears fear itself. Ron and Hermione come back from Hogsmeade. They have a great Halloween feast. Oh, I should say that Snape gives Lupin Wolfsbane potion, and Harry doesn't understand why he is drinking it. So everyone comes back from Hogsmeade. They go to the Halloween feast, and they try to get back to the room, but everything's crowded, and it turns out the Fat Lady has gone because her painting got shredded by Sirius Black.
Can anyone cast their minds back and remember if they thought something was wrong with Scabbers when they first read this? I can't at all remember, but did anyone think there was something weird going on there before it was revealed?
Nope.
I
Well,
don't
I
think so.
As they go along, it kind of makes him sound like he's sick, like he's looking feeble and his hair is falling out and stuff. So I maybe thought there was something weird, but I didn't think it was as weird as it was.
Yeah, I think that I'm with Paul here. I think he was dying.
I had more like qualms about Crookshanks, which is probably what JK was going for with us feeling as kids. But I didn't really notice. I thought Scabbers was just annoying, like, cats like mice or rats. So.
Yeah. Well, I do have a lot of empathy for Hermione in general in these chapters. I was definitely against Crookshanks when I first read this. I do remember that very clearly, that I was like, what are you doing, Crookshanks? Stop hurting the poor rat.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely casts the cat, quote-unquote cat, as the villain in this situation. Because we know Scabbers, and we don't know Crookshanks. So it's like, who are you, and why are you eating the adorable rat?
And a couple of times later on, Harry mistakes Crookshanks for the Grim, just walking around the grounds and stuff, he sees an animal and then it's Crookshanks, which kind of puts it in your mind that it's associated with him.
I assume looking back, we're supposed to think that Sirius was actually close by at that point, because I think he's like, oh yeah, I've been meeting with him in the forest later. So whenever he sees Crookshanks outside, I take it as like a reference that Sirius was also there, but like keeping his distance.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So what exactly is going on with Crookshanks? Are there like any weird theories about Crookshanks that I don't know about?
He's a Kneasel.
What's that? What is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that Crookshanks is definitely not like just your regular cat. Like I remember seeing on MuggleNet, though I don't remember, like I'm assuming it's called what Michal or Marie, I don't know who that was, just said. But there's something.
Casey. What? We've met in person. Also, I don't have a French accent.
I heard a woman's voice, and that was all I heard.
I take it as a compliment, actually.
But I think there's something more intelligent about this creature than is to the eye, I think, which I think works nicely for Hermione.
Isn't it the case with like a lot of animals in Harry Potter? Like, I don't know, Hedwig is also like, she understands when Harry speaks to her, so it's kind of the same idea of animals being just slightly more intelligent than what they are in real life.
Yeah, I think that's true. Obviously, Hedwig and all the owls seem to have a level of awareness and knowledge that most typical pets do not. Speaking of people with more awareness and knowledge than you would expect, we have Small Paul joining us as well.
That's a great introduction.
Hey, slightly hungover Small Paul joining in on the AM.
So in particular, the moment that I have the most empathy for with Hermione is when her sort of lack of social grace when Lavender Brown's pet dies, and she's like trying to prove why it's not actually prophetic that played out. Like, that's exactly what I would do in that situation. I was trying to prove, at least when I was that age, I would try to prove why.
Yeah.
I mean, she is bunny death-splaining to Lavender here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't approve of it, but I understand, and I do have empathy for her experience.
Do you think it's a lack of social grace, or do you think it's because Lavender is like totally drinking the divination Kool-Aid and Hermione is totally anti-divination?
Yeah, it's part of the frustration, I think. Yeah, with divination, but also just Hermione being Hermione.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hermione
has no patience. Like, anything Trelawney related is like, she won't tolerate it.
Emphasizes how Hermione is so logically oriented and not really emotionally or intuitionally gifted in that way.
I do think it's something we should pay attention to as we go through these chapters. I think this is a big moment of transition for Hermione. We don't really see the conclusion of it until later, but I think we're going to see Hermione change a lot as a character as we go through these chapters, so that'll be a key arc to follow.
It's funny, like, reading this now. I feel like when I was a kid, I was kind of like, you know, oh, Hermione doesn't like divination, whatever. But I was like really into like the prophecy side of this book and all that stuff. So I was a little bit like, oh yeah, this totally says how. I mean, Lavender Brown's totally right. Like, this is what Professor, I can never pronounce her name, Trelawney says. But I feel like when I'm reading it now, like, I'm like, oh yeah, skeptic Hermione telling it how it is. She's the best. Everything's great. And it's funny how, like, my opinions or my, I guess, how I see things have changed over time.
That's what happens when you get older. You just get more skeptical and jaded.
Yeah.
Stop believing in magic.
No.
Just a random thought. During the little sequence at the end with the form, the Hogsmeade form with McGonagall, when there's the line, while Ron egged him on with vigorous nods, I always find that very funny as an image. I think of like the Jack Nicholson nodding gif when that's happening. Just, Ron in the background nodding seriously.
I would like to draw one parallel between with Crookshanks, though, because Hermione does end up falling, perhaps inexplicably, in love with a grumpy ginger more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Oh.
There you go. We do, I think, at the end of this whole sequence, we'll see, I think, the first moment of Ron and Hermione
Yeah, I agree.
romance occurring.
Oh, I think the end is when he starts to fall in love with her, personally.
I think so, too.
Yeah, so with Crookshanks, do you guys reckon that something similar to Nagini? And I should preface that with saying that the crimes of Grindelwald imply that Nagini was actually a person that now permanently stuck in snake form.
I think it's possible, but I think my immediate reaction is more towards what Maria was saying earlier, which is just that Crookshanks is just a highly intelligent pet for whatever reason, whatever backstory that made Crookshanks that way. But it's possible. I mean, I'm not discounting that.
I'm sure we'll find out in the next movie.
Yeah, well, that's what Crookshanks will show up.
Oh man. I think the in-world explanation is though that he is part Kneazle, which is part like some kind of like magical creature that looks like a cat but is like way more intelligent.
A what?
Kneazle.
Oh, like the thing in Captain Marvel.
That's a flurkin, but sure.
It's a cat.
Yeah, I never understood what made Kneazles special, other than they were like smart and had bigger ears, but were essentially still a cat.
I don't know. I always kind of read it as like how the magical world has many equivalents we have here in the Muggle world. It was just their equivalent of the cat. It's a cat, but magic. How's it magic? We don't know. I guess it's just kind of smarter.
So it just ignores you magically?
Yeah, basically.
Shows you its magic butthole.
The strange particular thing, I guess, is that it can detect there is something bad about Scabbers, but I guess that's just because it was communicating with Sirius somehow. They had a dialogue at some point, and that's why.
Well, isn't there that like old folklore belief too that cats can see magic?
And it seems like that would be sensory overload in Hogwarts if you can see magic. It's just like everywhere, all the time.
And maybe this particular cat can actually see an animagus and see that being a thing. That
I'm looking up Kneazle on Pottermore, and it just says intelligent cat-like creatures that have a knack for spotting shady characters.
There you go.
Oh, very specific.
It's literally just that.
Yeah, it just describes Crookshank.
Yeah. So I have 2 Lupin thoughts from the final scene we get. One is that I love how Lupin already knows that Harry, Ron, and Hermione are usually a package deal. I just think that's kind of cute that he remarks that Hermione is not with them. I also love how saying Voldemort's name is an immediate source of trust and respect for Harry. I just like that as a little bit of connection between the 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to Lupin Thoughts.
I just love that Malfoy thinks it's an actual burn to be like, his robes are old. Like, oh my goodness. And everybody else is like, okay. We were paying attention to what was coming out of his mouth, actually, not what he was wearing.
When you can't fall back on racism, it's a lot harder to insult people.
Go for the classes.
Oh, his
Very
robes,
appropriate.
they're not...
It's all too appropriate for Malfoy. All right. Any other thoughts on Flight of the Fat Lady? Obviously, it ends with the Fat Lady being smashed. So.
About that, what are the logistics of the people in paintings being harmed? Because she's like all freaked out and traumatized, but can you actually hurt someone in a painting if you slash their painting?
I think it's more like someone came into your house and messed it all up.
Okay, but it doesn't seem they're that attached to the portrait since they can move to any other one they want to, so it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but it's certainly traumatic, I guess. Even though they're kind of invulnerable to actual attack.
I find the whole painting thing really sad when you think about it, because all of them are just trapped there,
For
especially.
eternity?
Yeah, it's like a purgatory.
It's what drove Sir Cadogan mad.
It's not really them, though, guys. It's like a shadow of them. It's like less than a ghost.
Oh, that makes me feel better about it.
It's so much better. Yeah, they're like facsimiles of the actual person. They're just.
But they still seem fairly conscious. They can have conversations and talk to each other and talk to people.
Right, with Dumbledore later on, he seems to actually be directing events as a painting.
I wonder how much harm is caused by, like, when you have a death of a relative, you just hang up a painting and just keep talking to them.
That's gotta fuck you up, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem emotionally stable.
Thanks for making this whimsical world, JK.
Monster.
Do you think Norman Bates would have had a painting?
Oh God.
Wow.
That
Okay.
might have saved us a lot of cultural agony, actually. Yeah.
Only therapists are allowed to have the paintings, and then when you're ready to talk to the person who's caused you so much grief, then they bring it out.
Alrighty. That was a grim ending to a Flight of the Fat Lady. Speaking of grim, Chapter 9, Grim Defeat. Would you like to take us through that, Xander?
I would. So I actually just wrote like a straightforward summary because I haven't done a summary for any of these podcasts in a long time. So with Black's attempt to break into the Gryffindor common room, all of the students have to spend the night in the Great Hall while the teachers investigate the castle. The trio briefly discuss how he could have gotten in. Then Percy shouts for everyone to go to sleep. Sometime around 3 in the morning, Harry overhears Dumbledore get the all clear from Snape. Sir Cadogan becomes the guard for the Gryffindor common room painting. Everyone in the school is buzzing about the break-in, seemingly knowing the reason, Harry Potter, because it helps to be the titular character of a book series. Because everyone is in the belief that Harry was the target, teachers and prefects have been following him around. McGonagall summons Harry to her office to tell him about Black, but is surprised that Harry already knows. Which, again, I don't get why she would be surprised he already knows. It's pretty obvious. But then she suggests that Quidditch practice should be postponed. Harry objects since their next match is against Slytherin. McGonagall allows it, saying Madam Hooch can keep an eye on Harry. In Harry's final practice, Oliver Wood tells them that they'll be playing Hufflepuff and not Slytherin, making their practices for the Slytherin match pointless. Between classes, Oliver Wood keeps bothering Harry about Quidditch strategies, even making him late for a Defense Against the Dark Arts class that Snape was substituting. Snape took 15 points from Gryffindor, and then he begins his lessons on werewolves, even though it was meant for later in the term. He then assigns homework on how to recognize and defeat werewolves. The Quidditch match against Hufflepuff comes, and it's during a tremendous storm. During a timeout, Hermione charms Harry's glasses so he can see through the storm better. Having trouble with the winds, Harry is pushed about on his broom, and is distracted when he sees a big black dog. Almost seeing the snitch, Harry flies towards it past Cedric Diggory. Dementors appear, Harry hears screaming. He loses consciousness and falls off his broom and plummets to the earth. He wakes up in the hospital wing, his teammates surrounding him still in their dirty gear. Gryffindor lost. Cedric Diggory demanded a rematch but was denied. Yeah. Everyone but Ron and Hermione are kicked out, and then they tell Harry it was Dumbledore who saved him from the fall and banished the Dementors from the Quidditch pitch. And then Harry's Nimbus 2000 was also flown into the Whomping Willow and destroyed. And that's the end of the chapter.
Tough chapter for Harry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Poor
just
Harry.
the way she ends the chapter, like, yeah, everybody's kicked out of the hospital wing, and then it's just Ron and Hermione, and they're like, yeah, Dumbledore saved you from the fall, so you're all right, you know? But yeah, your broom, the Whomping Willow got it, sorry, bud, and then closes the chapter.
Yeah, that's his broom. He's stuck with that for a long time. What's he gonna do? It's not like a new broom's gonna show up and save the day.
His manhood just got shattered.
Exactly. It's all very symbolic.
The phallic symbols in this are
That
Yep.
and Cedric Diggory.
Cedric Diggory.
I am pre-sad about Cedric Diggory.
Yeah.
Is this the first chapter he's mentioned in? Because Cedric Diggory is mentioned like a million times.
Yeah, I think this is the first time.
Yeah, because it's the first time they've played anyone at, or at least on screen, they've played anyone who isn't Slytherin at
Yes.
Quidditch, I think.
This is our most in-depth Quidditch I think we get, basically, for
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
the whole series in these few chapters.
Multiple games.
Yes. Deep strategy, as we learn, there's a very different defensive scheme you have to run against Slytherin versus Hufflepuff, so there's all kinds of different changes they have to make to adjust. Doesn't work out.
Slytherin
they-
plays dirty. Hufflepuffs are particularly good finders.
Even though only one thing matters in Quidditch, unless you need a very specific point total, which is a key part of the playoff run that you have to.
What, like they hit 69 and everyone in the stands goes, nice.
Somehow you score 9 points.
Yeah.
There's got to be some weird technicalities.
Gotta find a way.
What with J.K. Rowling's all retroactive inclusivity and stuff, it is odd that all three of the athletic ladies on Gryffindor team are all swooning over Cedric Diggory, and no one is at all interested in separate genders. It seems like if she was really going to do that, that could be something to include.
Don't give her any ideas.
We'll get that the extended cut.
She's already tweeting it right now.
Extended edition of Harry Potter.
I kind of got the sense that, like, even people who don't like Cedric are kind of like, okay, yeah, but he's really good looking. Like,
So hot.
like it's kind of like universally acknowledged that he's just like a very hot guy, no matter who you are.
And then they cast Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
It was before he was Robert Pattinson, and he was cute in the movie. Just saying.
He was still
That
Robert
is fair.
Pattinson.
Yeah.
He was not that cute. I mean, not like everyone being like, oh, the hot guy. That's a bit too much.
This is one of those things, though. It's so hard to replicate these descriptions.
Mhm.
Yeah, who would you have cast otherwise?
I have no idea.
Yeah, see?
Casey, you know, who would you have cast?
I like the actor they picked. He
There
was
you go.
very cute.
I would have gone for Gilbert Gottfried, but yeah, that's just
They also like to
I'm
put Johnny
getting
Depp
this
into the
snitch.
movies.
It's also weird that they don't have substitutes, so that if Malfoy has an injury, they can just postpone their game and not play, so they don't have any backups or anything. It seems
It's
kind of weird.
especially weird because I think in the next Quidditch chapter, they're like, well, I was hoping that it wouldn't be. I think it's actually about Cho Chang. I think Dubois is like, well, I was hoping it wouldn't be her because she was still injured and they would have to use their replacement. So obviously it exists, but
That in Half-Blooded Prince, don't they sub in Malfoy?
Yeah, they do actually seem to evolve at that point. There's
I
some
think
subbing going on.
I think the rules of Quidditch are like very much like the only real rule seems that like you don't postpone or cancel a game ever unless
Right.
like the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. You know, like
Yeah.
that's the only real rule. Everything else is kind of like, all right, cool, you can't find another secret. All right, cool. Well, we'll just swap in another team. And I mean, like Hufflepuff wasn't even expecting to play, so you know.
What kind of injury problems do you think Cho has that can't be solved by Madame Pomfrey?
I don't know.
It's a long-term injury that.
Something more extreme than breaking your arm, apparently.
I mean, same question about Malfoy. Like, how can this excuse be working?
Yeah, that's true.
His dad waved a couple gold galleons. I don't know.
So what do you think Snape wants to happen? He wants the students to find out that Lupin is a werewolf, but then what is that going to do? Because Dumbledore already knows, so it's not going to get him fired or anything. It's just...
Well, I think he's trying to do what happens at the end of the book where all the parents are so mad that they have to fire him, you know, because they don't want their students being taught by a werewolf.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the problem is he wants exactly what happens with Hermione to happen because this is when she figures it out. But it happens to the wrong person because she doesn't care.
Everyone else is too dumb to figure it out.
Yeah. Or they didn't do the essay.
Too bad. Too bad for Snape. It works out in the end for him. Sort of. Doesn't get his Order of Merlin, I don't think. So that's too bad.
He's so mean though. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he actively insults Hermione. It's like, that's not okay. Like, you can be a mean teacher and not be like, you're an insufferable know-it-all and I'm taking house points from you.
Yeah, he's not a well-adjusted individual.
No, not so much.
Oh, really?
That's well put.
Not a great guy, that Snape.
And he's come off as so reasonable in the past 2 books.
What happened to him? Why is he so mad?
Well, as we eventually learn more and more about him, he gets kind of played as the victim, and then some people view it as, oh, nothing's his fault. He was always the put-upon guy, but he doesn't
everything's his fault.
respond well to a lot of things.
Oh yeah, we obviously, and again, we're full spoiler, eventually learn that Snape is not an evil person, but he is certainly not, as has been said, a well-adjusted person. He does many awful things, and his eventual good acts do not excuse that.
He's a bad person who did good things, not a good person who did bad things.
I mean, the werewolf homework was like the pettiest move ever.
Hmm. To be fair, I think I can't believe I'm saying this, but I do think he really thought that Lupin was letting Sirius into the castle. That was probably influenced also by,
But he would have
definitely
been.
believe that.
He would have done a lot more if that was the case, because he's still brewing him that potion to take care of his werewolf stuff, and he was. I'm sure he told Dumbledore about it, but it seems like he would have done a lot more if he thought he was actively bringing mass murderer. I guess maybe he doesn't think he's a murderer or whatever.
Well, he tries to tell him at the beginning of this chapter, and Dumbledore's like, no, we've spoken about this. He's not doing that.
That's the part I don't get. I guess that Snape and Dumbledore don't have the same kind of rapport they have later on, but I feel like they would have talked about this. Like, I guess his hatred of Lupin is so blinding he doesn't care. But if Dumbledore has confidence in him, why would he not back off? I don't really understand.
Yeah, I still don't think I mean I have like a theory from my last reread that like Snape changes significantly over the 6th and 7th books.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his like extremely close interactions with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore basically being like peak manipulative Dumbledore and doing a number on Snape, because that's the only way I can kind of understand a lot of what he does in book 7. But yeah, I mean he does say like, oh, you remember the conversation we had, Headmaster, just before the start of term, and Dumbledore's like, yeah, no, we're not talking about this. So I think Snape knows that he can't make a move. Like, he can't make a move against Dumbledore that would be a move against Lupin. He can only make a move that would be specifically against Lupin, which is why he's trying to use the students.
Yeah, this book in particular, it's surprising how opposed Snape and Dumbledore seem, and we'll see that more clearly at the end of the book. But it's the most opposed I think I've seen them in the series. And I think you're right that there's something that changes later. It's not as though they always had that relationship this whole time. All right, any other thoughts on Grim Defeat? There's more Lupin to come if we want to continue that in Chapter 10.
I do want to bring up, and it's always bothered me in this book particularly, and I get that this chapter, obviously being called Grim Defeat, is just like, it builds off that like gloom and doom idea. But the whole idea that when the Dementors come onto the Quidditch pitch, and it said that Dumbledore banished them from the Quidditch pitch, it's like, why are they on the Quidditch pitch in the first place? Like, why do you have them around this school? It doesn't make sense.
That's enforced by the ministry, right?
And we talked about it in one of the previous rereads about how autonomously they're able to operate if you can just make them stay where you want, or if they just kind of wander around and do their own thing. Kind of.
Well, right, but if they're supposed to, like, aren't they supposed to just be on the perimeter of the school? And I think the Quidditch pitch falls into that category, because it's on the grounds where, like, Hagrid's hut and stuff are, too. So it just seems weird to me that they would go to the Quidditch pitch.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird distinction. Like, what is the actual boundary of Hogwarts?
I think
they're outside.
I think they say it's like by the gates, like they pass by the Dementors that are standing guard at the gates around the like what would be basically like the apparition field. I think that would be the same thing.
Yeah, it would be a strange defense though then, because what if someone were to encroach through the Forbidden Forest or what have you? There's no defenses there really, right? So
I don't know if it's in this chapter or the next chapter, but somebody says that like that many people being in one area was like too enticing for the Dementors.
Yeah.
I think isn't it in my chapter? Maybe not, but it's Lupin who says that to Harry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, in the next chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it makes sense in that, you know, they can't go into the school where all the kids are at one time, but then at this point they're all there at one time, so they all congregated around there because they're so hungry or something.
So it's essentially the amount of people in happiness draws them like Drogon was drawn to a pit full of people bloodletting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Perfect.
Instinct takes over from intellect.
I think that's a lot of what explains the Dementor's actions, really, because they are like they exist, I think, somewhere between intelligence and like just instinct, because they can be like bargained with, but I think all of their bargaining has to do with like their source of food / soul / happiness.
So wizards just domesticated them.
No, they kind of, well, they're sort of like cats in that they sort of agreed to be but they were like
partnership.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, you're gonna feed me? Okay, I'll stick around. But like actually, I don't really know what Dumbledore thought was gonna happen if these Dementors are like going without an actual source of food or whatever however they metabolize happiness.
Do they actually need to eat? Or
what's the caloric intake of happiness?
They do have some self-restraint because, like, they talk later on about how they've been given permission to give Sirius the death's kiss if they catch him, but they don't normally just go around doing that to anybody they want. So they can hold back on not taking out everybody's soul.
Well, I think they would if the wizards weren't demonstrably more powerful than they are.
So Patronus charms are the only thing that keeps them in check, or there's some other way that they control them, that they have power over them.
Like the whole thing about the Dementors, like there's, I think, a limit to their practicality because ultimately I think they're a metaphor for mental illness and depression and stuff. So, and I think they actually work really well in that context. Like Hagrid's description later on about being in Azkaban is very I think accurate to the idea of depression. So it's not like I get the urge to be like, okay, well, what's the like degree to which they can decide versus be controlled versus what they eat. But I think it's more about like what they represent than what they actually like do.
I think that's a very good point.
I wrote a paper on it in college.
I'll have to read that.
I really don't think I still have it.
Speaking of paper, let's go to chapter 10. The Marauder's back. With Casey, I think, is taking charge.
Keep them coming, Zach.
Yes.
All right, so mine is also not a funny summary because I wrote this at 2 o'clock in the morning last night, but whatever. All right, so Harry, still recovering from his near-death fall, is tormented by the Grim he saw right before being attacked by the Dementors. He also now knows that the voices he's hearing when being attacked by Dementors is that of his mother's right before she died as she was protecting him. By Monday, Harry was back in school, and Professor Lupin was back as well. Lupin looked like the sickness, quote-unquote, took a lot out of him. After the students complained about Snape's lesson, he told the students that they didn't need to do that damn essay. Lupin kept Harry after class to discuss the Quidditch incident. Harry asked him why the Dementors affect him so much in comparison to everybody else, and Lupin replies that Harry has had a more traumatic past. After some convincing, Harry is able to get Lupin to teach him to fight off Dementors. All right, and then this is the final week of classes before Christmas break. There's going to be a Hogsmeade trip, which means Harry has to be left behind again. Sadness. As he turns to go back to his room after sending off Hermione and Ron, a sneaky Fred and George give him a present, the Marauder's map. Harry thinks it's just a piece of parchment, but after the boys say the infamous line, "I solemnly swear I'm up to no good," the map comes alive. At the top, it lists the names Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs as the original owners, and Harry realizes it shows all the corridors of the castle as well as everybody in them. Fred and George immediately point out the passageways that lead to Hogsmeade, including those which Filch knows about, one that's caved in, and one that the Whomping Willow is over, which is a bad idea to go through. Finally, the twins show Harry how to conceal the contents of the map by saying, "Mischief managed." Harry immediately uses one of the passageways to go to Hogsmeade, into Honeyduke's, the candy shop in Hogsmeade, and snuck up on Ron and Hermione, who were debating about which sweets to buy him. They go grab butterbeer after Hermione chastised Harry for keeping the map. And then suddenly in the pub, Professors Flitwick, McGonagall, and Hagrid enter the pub along with the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. The four and Madame Rosmerta, who Ron really likes, who's the bar lady, they talk about Sirius Black being in the area. Rosmerta doubts the claims of Sirius and mentions how he was James Potter's best friend and also Harry's godfather. They also explain Sirius's so-called betrayal of secrets to Voldemort. After James and Lily's death, Sirius was caught after a confrontation with another friend of James, also presumably murdered by Sirius along with many others, Peter Pettigrew. Once they leave, the trio are very confused, and that is it.
I love this chapter.
Yeah, it's a
Me
good one.
too.
Some very
Yeah.
significant backstory, although false backstory that we
Yeah.
get here.
So when I was reading this chapter, and as I was reading a lot of the other chapters, does it seem like it's blatantly obvious that McGonagall, like, doesn't believe any of this? Because she seems like she's playing, like, the long game with if Sirius is really as bad as he is.
I don't think so. I mean, even Dumbledore believes this version of the story.
Yeah.
So I think, like, it's part of what's so powerful about this is how pervasive, like, you know, Peter Pettigrew gets a lot of shit for being really stupid, but, like, he literally pulled one over on the entire wizarding world, including the people who knew Sirius best. And that's, like, a really powerful, it's a really powerful thing. And I actually think that, like, this is a really cool segue into, you know, I think we're definitely getting more mature with the books with this book, but toward the end when we learn that, like, it's a complete reversal of who we thought was good and who we thought was evil and why. I think that's, like, a good segue into the more mature parts of the story.
Yeah, for sure. I remember reading this for the first time and also kind of just believing it hook, line, and sinker like Harry. Because, you know, you just hear the name Sirius Black and you're just like, ooh,
Yeah.
that sounds ominous. While Peter Pettigrew sounds more like the oh geez, I dropped my wand kind of character. And you don't expect him to be like the scheming person. And then even later on in the books, you learn why other people didn't realize that either, because the Black family is, well, they have a black name. It's very, like, it's a dark wizarding family. It does sound serious. It does. Thank you, Zander.
And also a couple of times in this chapter they compare Peter Pettigrew to Neville Longbottom, so you just naturally feel sorry for him, and he's like,
Oh,
what a
yeah.
fine guy. And so he couldn't be bad.
Yeah, I think that's a very canny move on Rowling's part, actually, because I think we're already leaning into that, and just to make that comparison explicit, and then have him be, like, one of the, like, major antagonists of the series is a, like, I remember people who are like, oh my god, Neville's gonna turn evil because she keeps comparing Pettigrew to him. Like, no, Neville's the best. Neville wins the Battle of Hogwarts.
It's a really well set up reversal, as you say, Michal, by J.K. Rowling. Black sounds so much like a criminal in this story, in the way this is told. The bit in particular I love in the way that it can be interpreted both ways is the part about wanting to take Harry. It sounds like such a like I need to take him to, like, bring him to the Dark Lord or whatever. But it's obviously not what he intends in reality.
I gotta take him to Grimmauld Place. I gotta keep him there where no one can find him.
Yeah. Casey, is it the like what made you think that McGonagall knew precisely?
Well, it was actually I think it was, I'm not sure which chapter Harry goes to speak to McGonagall about signing the paper. I know he just said it. It was the last chapter or the chapter before.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. So when she says, like, do you know about ... And then Harry's like, oh yeah, I know Sirius Black wants to kill me. And she's like, oh, well, good. It sounds like she could have said something else in that moment, but she decided to just go along with what Harry's saying or whatever. So that's what started my thought track on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with the others that it's I think the story works really well with no one knowing, no one has figured it out. Even Dumbledore believes Sirius Black is the bad guy. And in this chapter we're discussing, McGonagall is like, I was hard on Peter Pettigrew and I regret it now because so she feels bad for the guy.
That
apparently.
felt very earnest to me. That part where she's kind of almost crying, it sounds like, when she's talking about Peter. So
yeah,
I agree.
Oh, one question I have about that conversation is, well, two questions actually. One, Hagrid made up with Fudge pretty fast, considering the
Yeah.
guy sent him down.
It's a weird collection of people going for drinks.
really
It's
is.
kind of weird.
Right?
It didn't
Sorry
really
about
make
that
sense.
whole
Like,
sending you to prison thing.
Completely innocent person.
no, but I mean, even McGonagall, or I don't know, maybe it's changed because, I mean, maybe what we know about Fudge's reaction to the rest of his story makes me think that, but I would think that even McGonagall doesn't really respect him that much, so it's kind of weird. Even at this point, I mean, that she would, yeah.
I'm always also really amused whenever Fudge shows up because I keep thinking like, oh, it's the entire country of Great Britain, and he's like an actual like high-ranking government official. But then I'm like, oh wait, the wizarding community is only like what, 5,000 people? It's the size of a small town.
Yeah.
But
You
he
had
still
to-
is a high-ranking, powerful person in the world of magic. So it is weird.
Just going
Yeah.
after drinks.
Yeah. You had two questions, Michal.
Yeah, so the other one is like, why don't they mention, like, it's very transparent to me that like they don't mention Lupin in this conversation, because really they should. They should really be like, oh yeah, Pettigrew, and also they were friends with the guy who just joined us as our teacher, as our defense against the dark arts teacher. Like, he should have come up here, and the fact that he doesn't, I guess, is to hide how close they were. Because Lupin does cop to knowing him later. Like, he doesn't,
Yeah, I
Do we know
think
what
it's
Lupin
too.
was
It's
doing
too.
at that point in time when all this played out. Maybe he was kind of not as involved at that point.
Well, the thing is, like, to skip to the next time we convene to talk about this, they all thought that Lupin was the spy. So
Right.
that's why he was being kind of, like, pushed away. I mean, when I say they all, I mean the Marauders and possibly Dumbledore. I don't think, like, I don't know how much further it went, but that's why they do the switch of the Secret Keepers. And, like, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. Like, it just stuck out to me very strongly that there was a perfect opportunity to mention this other person who was quite relevant to their current everyday lives. The only thing I can think of is maybe they don't want, like, McGonagall and Flitwick don't want to, like, bring Lupin up because, like, they don't want to like bring him to the minister's attention, because Fudge, I don't think, would tolerate him having a werewolf as a teacher at Hogwarts. But
It would make Hogwarts look bad.
yeah,
Especially with one with ties to black.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I think that would actually be more of a problem for Fudge. It seems like he's and we see this much more in Order of the Phoenix, but he is very obsessive about Sirius Black, and he kind of gives this little backstory that he was first on the scene or whatever with the whole thing. So it seems like he has got a lot of issues, a lot of personal baggage there.
Yeah.
Trying
would
to
be-
win another election.
It would be a very traumatic thing to see all the people blown up and bits of people all over the place.
Especially because Muggles were involved.
And especially because it's Fudge, who I'm imagining has just like a handkerchief over his mouth, like, oh my lord. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I two things bother me about this conversation. First, what were they going to talk about before? I mean, because it's not like they came in and were like, okay, we're gonna have a meaningful conversation about this subject. They maybe met because they meant to talk about something specific, and it does not come up. Or I guess it just goes back to the fact that it seems weird to me that this group of persons are just gonna have a drink. And the second thing is actually what I think Fudge at some point says something like, it would be very bad if Sirius Black went back to Voldemort, and so how does he think that Voldemort is really around somewhere? Because I always thought he was kind of skeptical about that.
I noted that as well. It seems to be contradictory to his behaviors in the next two books, but I think that just shows how, blinded from reason he became by the parting of the ways. he just was so against Dumbledore that he was pulling the wool over his own eyes.
Mhm.
Well, I think there was also like a difference between, 13 years of accepting that Voldemort was in some very weakened form out there somewhere. Because what they really object to is Harry saying that Voldemort's back. Because they're like, he's not back. Not that they're not actually like, oh, he doesn't exist or he's super dead. Like I think they're like, they've lived long enough with that idea that he could still be out there, that they're okay with that. But the like return and the change in wizarding life is but I do agree. Like, I definitely think that this is probably one of the most reasonable points that we see Fudge. And it's funny. I don't know. Fudge is such a weird, interesting character because he swings between like you kind of want to like the guy to like all right, he's a schmuck, but like he's a politician, to like he's a complete maniac, to like the first chapter in the 6th book where he's like almost like a sympathetic figure, and it's
So I'm distracted by there being McGonagall serious shipping.
No.
Just
I didn't want to bring it into the podcast. No, like I'm looking on the.
like McGonagall. Flitwick, did you ever ship Sirius and Lupin? Oh yes, I did actually. Quite a bit.
Yum! Does anyone want to pass judgment on their drink choices? I thought that might happen. I'm just blown away by 4 pints of mead. Jesus Christ.
That's got to be heavy.
Mhm.
He's a big dude. And I think
no idea that he's part giant. No clue.
Do you think Hagrid drank Andre the Giant style?
I think so. I hope.
yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And to what Marie was saying, I think the only reason this conversation is happening like this is for narrative expediency, that the 3 of them need to hear what those people are saying. I don't know that there's any logical reason why they would be here talking about this, but that's fine. It moves the book along.
I don't actually have
Yeah.
a problem with it from a logical standpoint. I think it's what's on their minds, I guess. It's obviously in the news,
Boomers.
this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm good with it. All right, I don't have a good segue. Chapter 11. Give up the Firebolt.
I
So
wanted to bring-
disappointing.
Oh, go ahead, Matt. Maybe I'll come up with something.
So Ron has the hots for Rosmerta, right?
Yes.
Rosmerta remembers James and Peter Pettigrew and everyone coming. How old is she? Like,
I don't know.
Maybe
I
she's
would
got
assume
one of
middle
those
age.
magical glamours that kind of make her look fantastic.
she's not
or
really
she's
Zander.
aged like a fine wine.
I mean, she could have been like a younger person, like her first job starting out.
A teenage barmaid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I mean, even
James
not just
Franco.
her. It's like everyone in this conversation was already around when James and Sirius and everyone was in school, and like I know McGonagall is kind of old, and I guess Flitwick is too, but it's just it's like there's a time weird thing that makes it so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time in Harry Potter, it's like people are either very old or very young.
Yeah.
So like all of the Marauders are very, very young, and Dumbledore and McGonagall are very old.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of have that like tremendous gap there.
Yeah. I guess Fudge
Speaking of hot.
would maybe fall into that gap.
Yeah.
Not hot like Fudge, but hot like Madame Rosmerta, the Firebolt.
Hmm.
What a segue.
I'm trying.
Oh my
All right. So Harry returns to the castle, understandably pissed that no one has given him this information on how his parents were betrayed. So he decides to go through the pictures Hagrid gave him of his parents. Unfortunately, Sirius Black is in a few of them, and apparently seeing moving pictures of the man who supposedly betrayed your parents might give you nightmares. The next day is the start of the holiday, so Harry decides to go and chew out Hagrid for not telling him about Sirius Black. However, he changes his mind when he sees Hagrid is distraught over getting a court summons for his Buckbeak. Hagrid, rightfully fearing that a public defender won't take up the case and betting that the jury won't consist of Buckbeak's peers, is certain that Buckbeak won't survive. So, of course, he accepts the help of 3 13-year-olds to help with the legal case. On Christmas morning, and the boys awake to find that Harry has received an anonymous gift. It is a firebolt, one of the fastest brooms available. So Harry's Quidditch career is saved, as well as Big Paul's hobby of inserting innuendo into every sport scene possible. The boys are both very excited, while Hermione is skeptical of an anonymous gift left for a child. Later, they all head for Christmas dinner with the remaining students and professors, where Trelawney decides to join them after having a vision that it would happen, no doubt causing Hermione to suffer internal hemorrhaging from a burst blood vessel in her forehead. The meal goes well with entertainment provided by McGonagall and Trelawney bickering, while Snape adopts a Grinch persona, and Dumbledore adopts the role of a put-upon patriarch of the family who just wants to have a nice Christmas. And the boys head back to marvel at the phallic symbol in their room until they're interrupted by Professor McGonagall, who confiscates the Firebolt. The boys, immediately catching on that Hermione ratted them out, get mad at her until she reveals her suspicions. Because I thought, and Professor McGonagall agrees with me, that the broom was probably sent to Harry by Sirius Black. End chapter.
So that's true, but why would you think that? I don't really. I found that very strange.
I actually think it's brilliant. I think it's like
Yeah.
it's such a smart catch on Hermione's part because
It does make
she's totally
sense.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like
But
this
how
is-
could he get it? How could he acquire the broom?
how can he get to
Guys,
Hogwarts?
as a dog, run into a broom sword, grab it, and run out.
Okay.
Doesn't he end up sending Crookshanks to get the gold? It's like some really convoluted thing. But
Sirius Black is like a Disney princess. He just sends all these animals out to do his bidding.
No, forever headcanon him just as a dog running in, grabbing a firebolt, and running out.
Store owner going, well, what am I going to do? Chase after a dog like an idiot?
And supposedly he's a big-ass dog, too, so...
And it could be kind of cute, like, aw, he thinks it's a stick.
Yeah, I don't remember as a kid if I would have agreed with Ron and Harry about, hey, it's just a cool broom, what are you doing? But it seems as more logical. Obviously, you can't just use it right away if no one left a name on it. You should have it looked out. That seems obvious in retrospect.
Maybe he had some contact. Maybe that's the logic. He had some kind of contact that could do it for him.
well, they must be thinking that on some level, right? Because they can't be like he literally keeps getting into Hogwarts like over and over and over again, and he hasn't gotten caught, and the entire Wizarding world is looking for him, and like so they must think that he has some kind of someone out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Wizarding government is pretty ineffectual.
Yes.
Agreed.
Any organization in the Wizarding world has little to no effect. Also, they're putting an animal on trial,
Yeah, that's weird.
and
But
how
that's the thing.
does he get a public defender? How does the Wizarding court world work?
Yeah, it seems like
Seems like
Hagrid
Hagrid
would.
has to represent. Yeah.
It seems like Hagrid would be on trial for like malpractice of exposing students to dangerous things instead of just it's a rabid hippogriff.
Yeah,
It's magic, guys. It's
Yeah.
weird.
it's
Well, I
whimsy.
don't know how does it work in the real world when rabid or suspected rabid animals are destroyed? That does
I've yet
happen.
to see a dog get
Yeah.
brought to a court.
Yeah, I don't think they go to trial.
No,
No, but-
I was just asking myself the same question. It's like when you have a rabbit dog, there's got to be some kind of group of people just deciding that it's indeed rabbit and you have to put it down. And I don't know who does that, who decides that.
In
So,
Chicago, they just put him down.
yeah,
You
it's kind
Americans.
of like there was this one thing that happened in my neighborhood where a bunch of people. I don't mean to bring the mood down, but basically, long story short, a dog got a little crazy around one of our neighbors, and the neighbors threatened to sue them unless they put the dog down. So things like that do happen, I guess.
That sounds like the evil neighbor from The Wizard of Oz.
They weren't nice
Seriously.
neighbors.
I want that dog destroyed.
Yeah. Sorry, please continue on happy topics.
Welcome back to the Harry Potter reread. Today we're going to be talking about killing dogs.
I feel bad.
So here's a funny thing. I love this. This is just peak Dumbledore trolling at the feast, making Snape pull the noisemaker. It's just the greatest thing.
This was so funny.
It's like it was also a bit like, pull my finger. Come on. Come on, Snape. Do it.
As an American
best.
and as a Jewish American, I had no idea what most of the words in this chapter meant.
What's a cracker?
What's a cracker? What's a
Here in
Chippewa?
America, cracker is something completely different. I don't think that's what they're talking about.
No. What do you guys think about the conversation where Ron and Hermione have like planned out their argument to Harry? It's like a very heavy conversation for 13-year-olds to have. Like, don't go after the guy who murdered your parents, dude.
I don't know. It just kind of seems like advice from your friends, like, hey, this guy's dangerous. How about you don't pursue him? We're 13.
And they've seen how Harry gets in previous books where he wants to be doing stuff.
Yeah, and this doesn't stop. This keeps happening.
This is a recurring theme for Harry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say he doesn't take their advice.
Well, he actually doesn't. I mean, like, he doesn't go looking for Black.
True. It's kind of a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, they all stumble on him, so it's a group effort at
He
least.
goes looking for Ron.
Good move, my Harry. All right, there's not much more to this chapter. Is there anything else you guys want to add, or we can keep on rolling?
Segway.
I don't know. Patronus. I don't know.
I don't think that counts as a segue.
Yeah, probably not. Murray,
Just
take
yell
us away.
Segway.
Yeah. So I don't actually have the books in English, and I was kind of lazy about finding them in English on the internet. And also I was like, well, the whole thing about rereading Harry Potter is to be like, to feel like a kid again. So let's read it like I was reading it when I was a kid,
And do a
which is in
French
French.
recap?
No, I'm not going to do a French recap. I'm trying to
Oh.
apologize in advance.
I was like, ooh, our first multilingual podcast.
I thought
Nope.
that too.
Nope, but I'm trying to apologize in advance because my recap is kind of an exercise in translation, you know? When you read something in French and you're writing a recap in English. I used to do that at school. Like, it was kind of an exercise we used to do. So, but
Awesome.
You could
It
read the
should
French
be-
one for if we had any French listeners. They might enjoy that.
I
And then
didn't
do a
even write
translation?
it. I
Oh.
didn't write it in French. I immediately wrote it in English. But I was looking for. I was always searching for the word and the what it's called in English and in French, like the Bogarts. It is not a Bogart in French, obviously. Even the Dementors. I was like, what is it in English? So yeah,
What are they in French?
Détraqueur, which
That sounds very ominous.
yeah, it's a very good translation. It basically means the same thing. Like the words are similar, so it works well. Anyway, so when Dubois awkwardly tries to tell Harry that they can't really afford him falling off his broom if the Dementors come back, Harry decides it's time to ask Lupin about those lessons again. Classes are finally back after the holidays, but Lupin still looks pretty sick. Harry and Ron are still refusing to speak to Hermione after the Firebolt incident, but she can't stop herself from telling them it's too obvious why Lupin is sick, and you should figure it out, and you're terrible. But she doesn't actually explain to them why it's obvious. So Harry goes to his meeting with Lupin, and he finds that he brought another Bogart so that Harry can train to fight the Dementors. Lupin explains how to protect oneself against Dementors, and it's called the Patronus charm. It's very, very difficult, like way harder than everything Harry has learned yet. He shouldn't be able to do it as a 13 years old, etc., etc. But it's actually kind of a shield that Harry imagines being some kind of Hagrid with a big club. To make it appear, you need to concentrate on the happiest memory you can find. So for his first try, Harry decides to think about the first time he ever flew on a broom. Lupin lets the Bogart/Dementor out, and Harry tries the Patronus charm but fails, and he hears Lily's begging again. Next thing he knows, he's lying on the floor and Lupin is giving him chocolate. Harry doesn't want to quit. He decides to focus on last year when Gryffindor won the House Cup and failed again. Except this time, Harry hears his father telling Lily to run with Harry while he keeps Voldemort away. Lupin is shaken that Harry heard James and tells Harry that they were friends when they were at Hogwarts. He wants to stop and he tells Harry that the charm is too difficult, but Harry refuses and chooses another memory, the iconic moment that we all wish we could have actually lived in real life, when Harry learns that he will leave the Dursleys and go to Hogwarts to study magic. And bingo, that's the one. A shapeless silvery shield appears, and Lupin puts the boggart back in his box while Harry is still holding on, and puts a stop to the lesson after this first success. That's actually when Harry asks about Sirius Black, because, like we mentioned, it's weird that they didn't talk about Lupin when they mentioned that James and Sirius Black were friends. So, like, if Lupin knew James Potter, he must have known Sirius Black. Lupin is slightly angry, and he answers that he thought he knew him before telling Harry to go. Harry is shaken about the whole thing, because understandably, he kind of wants to hear his parents' voice again, but that means not fighting the Dementors, and obviously Quidditch is too important to do that, so he has to learn to fight them, but it's tough, and so and so. On the Firebolt front, Dubois comes back empty-handed after McGonagall refused to give him back the broom. Apparently, his priorities aren't straight, because he told her he didn't care if Harry fell, as long as he caught the snitch before. That's crazy, right? Harry and Ron are still not speaking to Hermione, but they sure wonder how she manages to be present at two classes at the same time. And meanwhile, the Patronus lessons are not going so well. Harry still cannot produce a full Patronus, but Lupin is confident he will be fine if a Dementor actually appears. Harry asks the tough question of what is under a Dementor's hood by the idea, because Lupin explains about the Dementor's kiss, and Harry answers that surely Black deserves it. Finally, McGonagall gives Harry his Firebolt back and pushes him to do everything to win against Ravenclaw. Harry tells Ron they should try and forgive Hermione, but as Harry talks to her and asks her how she managed to do all that, because she seems to be really tired, Ron finds Scabbers gone, with blood on his bedsheets and long ginger cat hair next to it. Ta-ta. And it's done.
Very good. But before you do that, can you say the name of the Gryffindor goalkeeper?
Dubois?
That's not its name in our book. It's Oliver Wood in our book.
Oh gosh, yeah. I was like, yeah, like, obviously, because in French it means...
I don't know. I like Dubois better. It sounds much nicer than Wood.
I didn't even realize I didn't translate this one. Yeah, it's Wood, obviously. Like, it's actually what it means, but yeah, sorry.
Is it fair to say that Dubois is the scariest character in the series? Seventh year Dubois, specifically. He's
it's like, it's my last chance to win.
If he falls off, it's fine.
He does get very desperate.
I love how he's like, McGonagall got shirty with me.
Yeah. Got a little shirty with me.
She's the head of your house.
Yeah, he's on fire this whole run. He's the best.
I have to say that, like, a lot of the stuff in this book and this chapter crystallized, like, for me when I realized that I was reading something different than the first two books, because the idea of Harry, like, listening to his parents' deaths and grappling with that and wanting to hear it, was just, and then the conversation about the Dementor's kiss, like, it's just such a double whammy of, like, whoa, this is different than what we read before, and they are, like, there's more real world consequences here, and more important things that we're being asked to think about than we have before. I really like this book, guys.
No, I agree. I think the Patronus to me is one of the coolest things in the series, and I think it kind of follows from what you were talking about earlier with the Dementors being a sort of allegory for depression. The Patronus is just such a strong idea of kind of externalizing and personifying your sort of happy feelings are bulwark against despair. I just love that as an idea, and as a piece of magic, it's so much more interesting than anything we've seen thus far.
It's kind of a bummer in that way that if you're a powerful enough wizard and you can just use your happiness to defeat depression, then that kind of puts a grim look on how depression actually affects people.
That's not really how I see it. I think to be able to produce the Patronus, you need to be able to actually have, I don't know, that sort of will and genuine. I don't know. It's not just like coming up with a happy memory. There has to be a genuine kind of inside yourself.
Yeah, but I don't want to think that. I don't view depression that way. That you can just have the willpower to bring happiness to defeat it. It's more of an actual illness that you. It's not that you're weak, that you can't do it. It's that that's just the way it is.
Yeah. It's I'm not articulating it correctly, but it's something more than just like coming up with a happy feeling. There's something that has to happen there.
I do want to derail it for a moment. Did everybody do Pottermore and find out what their Patronus is?
Yes.
Maybe back in the day, but I don't remember what it was.
Mine was Hagrid. It's weird. With a club.
It's just the Hagrid bursting through the door in Sorcerer's Stone as a Patronus.
Oh my God. Mine was a hyena.
I think mine was like a greyhound or something like that.
I think mine was a cat, but I'm not sure. Maybe I wanted it to be a cat and it was disappointing, but I still kind of decided that I remembered it was a cat. I don't know.
Yeah, I considered playing that trick on myself, but then I was like, I can't make myself forget that this was a hyena.
I really, really don't remember.
Do you think they just randomized that and then just didn't matter how you answered at all?
I don't know, because I got, what are those dead flying horses?
Thestral?
Yeah, I got a Thestral as my Patronus. My friend got an Osprey, too.
I believe my actual one was a Dun Stallion.
Oh, yeah, that was with mine, because we got, like, the same one. Mine was, like, what was the first word?
Dun?
Yeah, Dun Mare.
Dun Mare.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have a deer hound.
Is it, like, still listed on your profile? Can you go?
I'm currently checking my profile right now.
I kind of want to do the test again, just to know.
Aw. You have to wave your wand to have your Patronus appear, and it's just a dog running for me.
Aww. I remember liking that quiz. Like, it was a cool, very atmospheric, kind of like...
Yeah,
mystical.
that was probably the best Pottermore quiz. Like, the house sorting and wand was, like, whatever, but I still got good things. But, yeah, that one was fun.
Yeah. I think the results were bullshit. but
for sure. Oh, for sure.
It was a very cool, like, game in the thing.
If you got something better than a hyena, would you say that they're bullshit?
I don't know. I wasn't given that chance, was I?
Yeah.
I think you're just in denial that yours is a hyena.
Accept the hyena.
Don't push away your inner self, Michal.
I'm not responding anymore to this.
Enough of
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Alrighty. Any other thoughts on this chapter? Again, I think it has one kind of core theme to it, but otherwise there's not much to.
Segue.
Quidditch. There's nothing. Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. Michal, that's you.
Yes, it is. Okay. So, it's Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw, a chapter in which nothing even a little bit sexual happens at all. Ron and Hermione now hate each other over the Crookshanks Scabbers of War incident, and while Harry isn't mad at Hermione, he takes Ron's side and thinks it's obvious that the cat ate the rat. Harry invites Ron to watch his first Quidditch practice on his Firebolt, which, after Madam Hooch gives it back, turns out to be, as advertised, the greatest fucking broom in the entire world. Wood tells Harry that Ravenclaw's seeker is Cho Chang, who is pretty good, but flies a Comet 260. Ha! Between the Firebolt and Harry's anti-Dementor lessons, the team feels super confident. After practice, Ron takes the broom for a spin until Madam Hooch, who is supposed to be out there to protect Harry from a serial killer, wakes up from a nice nap. Do better, Madam Hooch. On the way back to the castle, Harry sees a creature that he thinks might be the Grim, but it is only Crookshanks. The next morning, the whole of Gryffindor house celebrates the Firebolt before the match. Malfoy tries to burn Harry with a remark about the broom needing a parachute for the Dementors, but Harry suggests that Malfoy attach an extra arm to his broom to catch the snitch for him, and it is a much better burn. Harry 1, Malfoy 0. While changing for the match, Harry sticks his wand in his t-shirt pocket in case he needs to perform the Patronus charm. On the pitch, the Gryffindors and Ravenclaws take stock of each other. Harry notices that Cho Chang is short and pretty. This is not sexual. The game begins. As the amazing Lee Jordan commentates on the Firebolt, Harry is quickly confronted with Ravenclaw's major advantage over Gryffindor. Strategy, bitches! Cho knows she can't outfly the Firebolt, so she stalks Harry's every move, cutting him off several times until he speeds up to shake her off. Also not sexual. Finally, Harry spots the snitch and is about to catch it when Cho screams. There are 3 Dementors on the pitch. Harry grabs his wand, Patronus exploding, white, and whatever from the tip. Shut up, Paul.
Proud of you.
And catches the snitch.
Not sexual at all.
No, not sexual. The team mobs him, and Gryffindor begins to celebrate when Lupin shows up, for some reason a little shaken. He shows Harry that the Dementors were really Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, and Marcus Flint in Dementor's robes, which is some freaking elementary school shit, guys. McGonagall gives them detention and takes 50 points from Slytherin, so it's fair to say Harry 2, Malfoy still 0. The Gryffindors head back to their tower to party. Ravenclaws head back to their tower to read, I assume, which is way better. Exhausted and stressed, Hermione makes like the best house and avoids the party as she reads Home Life and Social Habits of British Muggles. Ron refuses to bury the hatchet, and Hermione runs crying back to her dorm. At 1 a.m., the party ends at Professor McGonagall's insistence. Harry goes to bed and has a weird dream about following a silver creature through a forest. He hears galloping and is about to spot what it is when he's woken up by a truly epic scream that includes 14 A's, 12 R's, 5 G's, 5 H's, 1 N, and 17 O's. Ron has woken up and is howling about Sirius Black standing over him with a knife. The boys think he was dreaming, but the curtains around his bed are indeed slashed, and they run to the common room for help. Professor McGonagall comes back, irritated at the disturbance. She assumes that Ron was still dreaming, though he insists that she asks Sir Cadogan if he let a man into the tower. To McGonagall's horror, Cadogan is like, yeah, of course. My dude had all the passwords written on a sheet of paper. Duh. McGonagall, shocked, comes back inside and asks, which abysmally foolish person left the passwords lying around? Poor Neville raises his hand, trembling.
Bum, 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 bum.
Ouch.
Oh,
Very nice,
Neville.
very nice.
Poor Neville!
The first thing we learned at my job is that you never write your password down, ever.
It's very important. If Sirius Black much show.
Hogwarts doesn't have an IT department.
Yeah, there's 2 people I feel really bad for in this chapter, Neville and Hermione. She just seems so stressed out. It's a lot.
And I love that she's like, she grew up with British Muggles. And she's still reading Home Life.
That sounds like the worst book ever.
Yeah.
Well, it would be kind of interesting to get an outsider's perspective on how humans live.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you didn't have that experience, it would be interesting.
It feels like it would be like a fun thing to do, but like, come on. We don't need to be taking that many courses.
Well,
Yeah, especially not that one.
Yeah.
it's like buying tourist guides of like your city or travel guides. for
Yeah.
people.
Well, the thing
And
is, it just makes me think of like how in high school, one of my friends took German with me. She was born in Hamburg and she spoke fluent German the rest of her life. However, she was able to take this class and was just writing shit down.
I don't think that's what Hermione's doing. I don't think she's trying to get like an easy A though. It's like she just wants to do everything. And I think that, as we'll see soon, it's significant change for her that she's willing to let that go.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And also, I like how Cadogan's just like, of course I let him in. Everyone's got the password. You just gotta let him in if they got the password. I'm a painting.
He's great. I love him.
He's a very literal person.
He's just doing his job.
Yep. Great work.
And that's a good
Cadogan.
that's a good payoff from earlier, because Neville mentions that he made Cadogan tell him all the passwords because he was like freaking out. And I think we actually learn later it's not even Neville's fault. He didn't lose them. Crookshanks stole them from his bedside table and brought them to Sirius.
It's okay, Neville. It wasn't your fault.
If only he had his remember all.
Oh, that
Whatever
helped.
happened
It
to
doesn't
that?
remind you what you've forgotten. Oh, poor Neville.
So we see Cho Chang for the first time,
Yeah.
and Harry's crush.
Hell yeah.
And-
Cho Chang.
And she's as distracting as Cedric is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
What's with all these
"Oh,
hot
she's
people
really
in
pretty."
every house except Gryffindor?
Oh, come on.
Hey, you're
Harry.
13, hormones, you know.
Yeah.
I
Some of the
think
Gryffindors might be hot.
Gryffindor. I think they're
What
just
about Bill
later
Weasley, the
bloomers.
hottest character in the series?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Without a doubt. He's got
He's
scars,
cool.
bro.
Them
And an
sexy,
earring.
sexy scars. He likes eating
Just
raw
missed the
meat
boat on it.
sometimes. Sexy.
I love the worship of the Firebolt. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Just like the honor guard and all that. But it's so appropriate. It'd be like if you drove into school with a Lamborghini or something. People would just be going nuts over that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even.
What
I'm
school
even, like,
did you go to?
I mean, that didn't actually happen. I'm
Oh,
just
that
saying if
happened
that
at
were
my
to happen.
school.
Oh my
I'm
god.
thinking of like when someone brought in like the newest like Gigapet or whatever.
Oh,
That was like, oh my god, can I touch it? Can I hold it?
Or
The
the
new
newest
DS.
like hit clip, like whatever was like the new one that came out. That was like a middle school joke, but yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about those.
I don't know what this is, so okay.
You don't know what a hit clip is?
What is a hit clip?
What is
Oh
it?
my god, I feel.
I am but a
old.
young girl. Know nothing
Why
of the
is
ways
it
of
hit
war.
clips?
It was like, you know, a step up from the Walkman where you could get like a bunch of these like
Oh,
key
Jesus.
change like songs
There-
that you would like put in, and then like they wouldn't play even the full song.
Yeah, they were like keychain
Fucking
cartridges.
Good lord.
I mean,
All
for your
right.
generation, it would be like, what are those like pet thingies? Digi something?
Oh, Digimon?
No, like what were those pet things?
Tamagotchi?
Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, those
Yeah,
two.
I know what that is.
My sister was.
I know what Tamagotchi is.
Tamagotchi.
We never-
Just like a Firebolt.
They were all magic.
But it,
I got mine confiscated by my professor too because she was afraid a predator gave it to me.
Sirius Black made it.
Cool. Cool. Big Paul, you had something.
I was going to say it calls into question the like fairness of Quidditch if just the best equipment makes you win. If you can, whoever has
That's true.
the richest person with the fastest broom is that's
We
so
ha-
much of an advantage.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation with Chamber of Secrets because doesn't Malfoy's father like buy
Buy the
Slytherin all those?
Yeah.
rooms?
Equipment and money is how you win in Quidditch.
You don't even need
Yeah.
like performance enhancing drugs. You just need a faster car.
I mean, you don't even need the Seeker.
Just let the broom do it. It's got its own.
An autopilot broom.
It's like doing the Tour de France but with a motorcycle. It's just I feel like it's cheating.
I feel like you still need to be able to fly it because like if Neville tried to fly the
Yeah.
Firebolt, he would fail. And if you gave like a tennis team a bunch of sweet tennis rackets, they would still suck.
Yeah, I think it's a little overstated how much of an advantage it gives. I think it's just Harry combined with the Firebolt and him not being horribly injured and whatever causes them to be so successful. So
And it could be just like in Harry's mind, like, ooh, faster means better. Gotta go
yeah,
fast.
and it seems like they can always. It seems like Cho Chang and Malfoy are always able to stick with him. So it's not like he's like zooming around so fast they can't.
It's like 0.2 faster.
Well, Cho is undoubtedly a very good flyer.
Right, that's why. Despite her injury problems, she's worth the draft pick. I found the reckless gambling by Percy somewhat out of character.
Yeah, that
just
was
betting
weird.
money he didn't have.
He's
You
truly
sometimes see
smitten,
the real person when they're watching a sports game.
or when they're blindly in love.
Blindly in love so much that they can steal money from their significant other.
That was one of the things that always makes me laugh. I haven't got 10 galleons. Must go find Penny.
So I do really like the description of the Quidditch match here. I feel like it involves a lot of the different roles actually, and it's not just the Seekers. I like that the beaters get involved in kind of trying to prevent Harry from catching the snitch. It just feels like more of a cohesive game than it normally does in this chapter, so I like that.
Mm-hmm. Because Ravenclaw are smart.
And that's why all football teams are full of mathletes. Because smartness wins you sports.
Hell yeah.
Alrighty. Any other thoughts on Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw?
I just love
Gryffindor
McGonagall,
sucks.
her tartan bathrobe, and
Yeah, are her best moments coming in the chapter 15.
yeah.
Okay. So now this chapter has its fair share of innuendo. I'm sure you'll all agree, but I will confess that I had to make some references to some extra textual sources in order to add a bit of flavor where applicable.
Oh,
So
wow.
without further ado, after Sirius's botched nocturnal mission to find the hidden Peter and make a mess of him, the castle is on high alert. Professor Flitwick, who J.K. Rowling recently confirmed has always been very into foot stuff, is busy teaching the doors to discriminate against any future black intrusions. Filch is furiously filling every nook and cranny with whatever wood he can get his hands on. Many readers were unsurprised when Rowling revealed that old Argus is a BDSM enthusiast, but she went on to clarify.
So much.
But she went on to clarify that he actually leans more heavily into the masochist role when pursuing his own personal fulfillment. J.K. went so far as to describe an ideal romantic evening for the curmudgeonly old squib, replete with being chained upside down in a dungeon, while Peeves performed perverse mischief over his entire body, adding the requisite caveat that Mrs. Norris had to judgmentally watch the whole affair. Back in Gryffindor Tower, Sir Cadogan is out of fat again, so the full-figured lady is back on her bullshit. But now she's got a bunch of trolls to harass and terrorize anyone who tries to step to her uninvited. Being confronted in their bedchamber by a knife-wielding madman in the middle of the night hasn't altered Harry and Ron's priorities in the slightest. Harry's just stoked that the staff haven't discovered and sealed his secret escape tunnel, because life wouldn't be worth living without that sweet, sweet Hogsmeade action. Meanwhile, Ron is riding high on his minor celebrity status as a nearly murder victim, gladly recalling his harrowing encounter, going so far as to detail the imposing length of his would-be assailant's brandished weapon. Neville, on the other hand, is definitely taking some L's for his role in Black's failed foray. He's not allowed to know any future portrait passwords, so he has to wait outside the common room with the trolls while they compare the size of their clubs and leer unpleasantly at him. He also
actually do that, which I was like,
God damn it.
I was like, he's gonna walk right in.
There's a lot of quotes from the actual chapter in here. He also got Howler from his gran, berating him for shaming the family. On the plus side, Rowling has reported that Longbottom is in fact pansexual and envisioned eventually having a happy open marriage with Hannah Abbott. Rowling assures us that he had a vibrant, diverse, and expressive sex life right up until his eventual death of old age.
Kill me!
Topical.
Harry and Ron go visit Hagrid and find out that he's going to London for Buckbeak's trial. They see that he'll be wearing a hairy brown suit and a horrible tie, presumably looking something like Fozzie Bear. Waka waka, Buckbeak's fakad. To their chagrin, the boys realize that they have dropped the quaffle on their promise to act as attorneys and help prepare legal defense. Hagrid reveals that Hermione, on the other hand, has somehow found the time to help him out, but also that she's going through a tough time being estranged from the fellas. He encourages them to reconcile with her. They do in fact meet up with the missing leg of their tripod when they hear about the upcoming Hogsmeade trip, but things don't go well when Hermione threatens to tell McGonagall, who utilizes brushing and ear scratches in cat form as foreplay, about the Marauder's map if Harry tries to sneak out again. Ron is rude and they go their separate ways. Harry decides that he definitely needs his illicit Hogsmeade fix and hopes the invisibility cloak will keep him covered. Later, right as Harry is preparing to use the one-eyed statue hump to access the damp-hidden passageway, he is interrupted by Neville. While Harry is trying to make excuses and ditch Longbottom, Snape happens upon them, the pair of them, and is very suspicious of why they are meeting in this particular location. As they are retreating, Harry is disquieted to see Snape running his finger along the one-eyed head and examining it closely. Eventually, Harry loses Neville and returns to the scene alone. With some privacy, he is easily able to squeeze himself inside and slide down the chute. He immediately picks up the pace, eager to reach his journey's culmination deep beneath the sweets concealed in honeydukes. Harry tours around the shops with Ron for a bit while hiding under the invisibility cloak. They eventually end up outside the Shrieking Shack, where they run into Greg, Vince, and Drakey Mouse. Draco quips that the shack would be an upgrade in living quarters for Weasley. Ron's ready to throw down, but Harry capitalizes on his invisibility by covertly flinging some sloppy goo at Malfoy and the boys. The shock and confusion on Draco's face, after being splattered with surprise gunk, cracks Ron up, and he gleefully suggests that perhaps the notorious denizens of the haunted premises are responsible for the thick substance now dripping from Malfoy's hair. Crab Cakes and Gargoyle are freaking out as Harry throws a stick at them and then trips Crab as he's heading towards Ron. This unfortunately pulls the cloak loose for a moment, and Harry's bare head is exposed for all to see floating in midair. Draco is horrified by this sudden and unexpected glimpse of this unattached part of Potter, and he screams and takes off running with the lads in hot pursuit. Knowing that time is of the essence, Harry hurries back to Hogwarts. As soon as he re-enters the hidden passage, he pulls off his protective but inhibitory outer covering and sets off with gusto. Soon enough, panting with a stitch in his side, Harry is pulling himself out, his sweaty hands slipping on the sides of the chute. That's a direct quote, don't at me. Just as he rises out of the hump, who should come upon him? It's none other than Severus Snape, who J.K. Rowling will have you know is very keyed into sexual scent signals, aroma attracting theory, and obviously pheromone and perfumes and potions. Harry is marched to Snape's office and told about Malfoy's curious report. He innocently suggests that Draco must be hallucinating, since he's been in Gryffindor Tower all along. Snape berates Harry and says that he's just like his father in his arrogance and disregard for the rules, strutting around with his big swollen head. Harry would like to rage and says, STFU. He says that Dumbledore told him how his dad saved Severus's life. Dumbledore replies that the James gang had set up a joke that would have resulted in his death if Potter hadn't gotten cold feet and intervened. His dad wasn't a hero, but rather a self-serving bully. Harry is ordered to empty his pockets and thus hands over the blank Marauder's map. Snape is suspicious and tries to force the map to reveal its secrets, but only causes Moony, Prongs, Padfoot, and Wormtail to magically insult him. Snape then summons Lupin through the fire and pointedly asks him to explain how Harry could have acquired such an artifact. Lupin plays it off as NBD, and then Ron bursts in as a distraction. Remus pockets the map and confidently says the boys are fine, and takes his leave with them in tow, leaving Snape to stew saltily. Once outside, Lupin, whose weirdly specific and media-mixing kink is to partner up with Wild, some might even say Wildling woman, while in wolf form, and watch out for a young boy together. He cops to knowing about the map and who made it, but he's shocked that Harry's so dumb enough to use it while Sirius Black is on the hunt. He then lays on the field by telling Harry that his parents sacrificed their lives for him to live, and that him gambling his life on a trip to Hogsmeade, no matter how dope it is a poor way of repaying them. He's not mad, he's just very disappointed. And Fiend.
I don't even know where to go from here.
Bravo.
I don't know.
It is what it is.
That was very nice. Thank you, Paul.
I don't know what to say. It's
Anything in the chapter come to mind?
Not anymore.
Oh.
Something
Can
comes to
you
mind.
cite your sources for some of those?
No. Anonymous sources.
Okay. All right.
They asked not to be named. It's great how excited Ron is to get the center of attention. He's really excited, Ron. Obviously, this is something of a prelude to the tension to come in Book 4. Ron wanting to be the one who finally gets
To
recognized.
theme.
And book 6 when he
And
has
all of
the...
them.
And all the books.
This is kind of the first time we kind of hear of what James Potter was actually kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, we kind of hear him as a kind of like hero figure, like, oh, it's Harry's dad. Obviously, he must have been a good guy. And then we actually kind of hear he's kind of first a bully. Granted, it's coming from Snape, who's not exactly a reliable narrator, but...
Yeah, the first kind of
Some
like
valid criticism.
indication, I think, that the story is not
not
100%.
really- Yeah, not really confirmation, but hints.
It does seem kind of weird that Lupin has so much... It seems to have the power to just, like, shove Snape aside and, like, not punish Harry and just be like, okay, it's no big deal. They're going to go talk to me now.
You argue with the werewolf?
Fair point. I also found that weird, though. I felt like Snape would have pursued that more, but he seemed to back off.
Lupin must have some leverage, maybe beyond just being a werewolf.
Knows
Or
his
that-
fetishes.
I do love that Harry, like, this might be the dumbest 13-year-old boy-ish decision he makes, which is just like,
As
Yeah.
opposed to the other books when he makes a stupid...
well, no, but
12-year-old
it's
boy
so
decision.
it's so unnecessary. Going to Hogsmeade is so unnecessary.
What candy, Michal?
I know.
And practical jokes.
And butterbeer.
Oh, what fun.
So, yeah.
I really enjoy how, like, he was just, like, a floating head for a second after, like, basically throwing mud at Draco. We're trying to escape from them.
Comedy.
I can never see that again. See that scene the same way again. It's ruined. I love the line, "People can be stupid about their pets," coming from Hagrid.
Oh my god.
So fucking rich.
He knows
So
from
true.
experience.
Yeah.
I had a dragon.
It's obviously intended.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think this also is tough because it's hard. It's a little hard to root for Harry when you're like, you're guilty though. Like they completely pull one over on Snape in terms of like they blatantly lie to him. It's very similar to the scene in book 5, right? When they're just like, you know, when they lie about the DA, and it's like, yeah, you're glad that they get off, but it's also like the wrong person is right. So
That one's much easier to swallow though, because it's Umbridge.
yes, true.
And the DA is a much more significant, meaningful action than going to Hogsmeade. Yeah, Harry's not perfect.
When I was talking about Crab and Goyle, I actually looked up what the first names were to say Greg and Vince, because they're never referred to by either Gregory or Vincent. So I didn't even remember that those were their names.
I actually forgot that that's their real names.
Greg
I did too.
Goyle. Hashtag Greg Goyle.
No.
There you go.
There we go.
We got
Yes.
that. Alrighty. Other thoughts on Snape's grudge? Here we can round this one out.
I do think Lupin is like the hero of this chapter because he manages to walk that line between being like normal about it and then also being like, oh, okay, like, you know, giving Harry really the only message that would like get through his head.
Yeah.
It's a little rough though. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say like, don't. I mean, it's the right thing to say, I guess, but just to say like, don't let your parents' sacrifice be in vain. It's kind of harsh.
It is, but like you obviously agree with him, like, yeah, it's stupid, just why would you do that when everyone is trying to protect you? And what Snape was saying is right as well, like everyone is trying to protect you and you're just like, yeah, don't care, just gotta go to Hogsmeade. It's a bit stupid.
But also,
Oh, yeah.
if you take it to the furthest extent, like a super protective life where you don't do anything, just sit in a bubble and are protected, it might not be like worth living. And like the joy of life is going out and doing fun things.
Sure, but he's 13.
Yeah.
And a
He
literal
was in his
serial
20s?
killer is after him, as far
Yeah,
as they
if he
know.
was in his 20s, I would be like, yeah, he's got a point. Yeah, no, I was forbidden from leaving the house at 13. I mean, at night.
You were a bubble boy.
Were you locked in a cupboard?
Yep, locked in a
There's
cupboard with
for a
just a
little
candle and a Bible.
All right. Any last thoughts on Snape's grudge?
He's got a grudge.
That he does.
Yeah.
He does. If we know anything about Severus Snape, he has some grudges.
And apparently Flitwick has a foot thing.
His behavior at the end of the book when he just loses it completely.
Yeah, he goes a little off the.
Yeah.
I'm always very amused by the end of the book with the way Snape just goes off.
Oh,
Snape Unchained.
God.
All right. Chapter 15, our final chapter for this run of chapters, the Quidditch Final. So, the chapter begins with Hermione showing Harry and Ron a tear-stained letter from Hagrid, reporting that he and Buckbeak lost their trial. Ron proclaims that he will help Hermione prepare for the appeal, and all past grievances are forgotten and forgiven. Now that the trio is reunited, they go to speak to Hagrid at Care of Magical Creatures, where they find him resigned to Buckbeak's fate. Malfoy mocks Hagrid as he passes, and Hermione rewards him with a staggering slap, stunning everyone. She pulls out her wand to do more damage, and Malfoy flees for his life. Hermione mysteriously disappears on the way to Charms, and is eventually found sleeping in the common room. She is horrified to hear that she missed the lesson and goes to Flitwick to apologize. At Divination, Hermione finally has enough of Trelawney's bullshit and quits the class. Over the Easter holidays, Hermione continues to melt under a pile of books. Ron tries his best to research Hippogriff case law, and Harry prepares for the decisive Quidditch showdown against Slytherin. All of Gryffindor and Slytherin House wait in tense anticipation until the day finally arrives. After a bad night of sleep, Harry wakes to find a strange sight out the window. Crookshanks and an enormous black dog walk together across the grounds. He leaves the mysterious sight behind for now and heads down to the pitch. The match begins, and it's clear that Slytherin has adopted a bruising strategy of dubious legality. The Gryffindor team is able to weather the storm and rack up penalty shots until they've crossed the essential 60-point threshold before Harry can catch the snitch. Harry spots Malfoy chasing after the snitch, and he pushes his Firebolt to the limit to just barely edge him out and take the win and the cup for Gryffindor. Victory is at hand. That is that. It's a pretty nice chapter, pretty fun and lighthearted and good.
Oh, I love it.
We won.
Hermione.
Hermione is the best.
Yeah.
It's like the opposing chapter from Grim Defeat.
Yeah.
Cool Hermione has arrived.
Yep.
She's here.
I will say that I think the movie Punch is better than the book Slap.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, same.
That-
It's just so good to hear Draco be like, ah.
With so many G's and H's and A's and O's, etc.
Oh my god.
In the book, it's actually in slow motion. That's why it takes so long.
Yeah.
That's why. So I mentioned this before, but is this the first moment of Ron and Hermione romance when they share this hug? It seems like Ron is a little bit moved by it.
Yay!
And he pats her on the top of the head.
Yeah.
I think
The
he's.
best thing you can do. In
I
that
think he's
situation.
mostly embarrassed. Like, why is he hugging me? But yeah.
Just the pat on the head is just like, there.
He may have had feelings of admiration for her before. I don't know when it switches to romance, but
I think the line where it mentions that he was happy that they had finished hugging, to me, reading is he's a little hot and bothered. You might
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Uh-huh.
my first moment of realizing that they were into each other was watching the third movie after reading, like, all 5 or 6 books that were out and seeing him, like, hold hands with her when the Hippogriff thing happens. And so, no, I didn't see this.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I think this is, as I was saying, this is a really big moment for Hermione as a character. I think this is where she really, really comes into her own.
Yeah, she finally...
The combination of the slap and, I don't know, just she seems more assertive in general with the Quidditch match and of course quitting divination. Just
Those moments are just like she's finally coming into her own. She doesn't have to just be like, you know, the smartest person in class. Like, she's showing her the reasons why she's in Gryffindor. And I think it really shows like she's just more than just books. And I love her.
she's great. So, Michal, you wanted to talk some Quidditch?
Yeah, I know it's fun to like crap on J.K. Rowling for like Quidditch makes no sense, blah 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 blah. But like, I've rarely read a sports scene that moves me as much as this game does. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's so kinetic and you can just see it and experience it, and like I love. I'm not like a particularly big like Quidditch scene fan, but this is just like there's so much. It's emotional storytelling. And that, like, translated through sports, which I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, the moment when they win and they come together and they just crash into each other, like, I get the same feeling reading that, not to the same extent, but the same kind of feeling I get when I watch a team I support in the real world win a dramatic and emotional victory. I thought that part was excellent.
I do feel like Quidditch could use some rules from other games like red cards and yellow cards or a penalty box or something that prevents you from just abusing everybody.
This is more like basketball. It became like a free throw contest.
Yeah, like,
And they're just lucky that
Foul out.
Oliver Wood is so good at blocking penalties.
and what does the ref actually do other than call out points?
Well, she awarded the penalties, but
True.
Yeah, there were fouls.
All
in
right.
this.
Just seems like these penalties don't carry that much weight.
Yeah, like there should be, like in basketball, there should be levels of penalties. There should be like a technical foul or a flagrant foul, like what Malfoy does.
Yeah.
And that would get you ejected. I think that should probably happen. Or a red card or yellow card if you're not American.
I mean, I think it's just that, like, Quidditch is, and Hogwarts in general, the magical world is very much like, yeah, you know, the chips are going to fall where they may. Like, we'll fix it up if we have a problem later.
Like I say, though, with this and the Ravenclaw match, I like that everyone gets involved in the contest, where it often feels like Quidditch is just about the seeker.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of silly, the setup for it, but the idea that you need to cross this threshold in order to actually secure the cup, it does manage to make it more interesting for everybody. Although this is just basically penalty shots the whole time. I think they score one actual goal. In the
No,
match.
it's more than that. And the Slytherins score on wood.
Yeah, there's maybe one on each side, I think. But there's a lot of technical shots. Yeah, and again, I just love Oliver Wood. The sequence of chapters, just like his repeated, like, only if we're above 50 points. Just the level of
I know,
bravery he has.
Oliver!
It's so good.
Good old Olivier Dubois.
Dubois is the best.
Oh my gosh.
Dubois only cares about the Quidditch.
Only Dubois.
How could I
the
not
green hair,
realize
yes.
that I didn't translate this one?
Oh, it's
It's-
so
it's
good.
really
It's okay. We need to stop being catered to.
I'm just gonna start calling him Dubois from now on.
Yeah, I
It'll
like
make
Dubois.
it'll make things harder for Big Paul to
Big Paul.
make innuendos out of.
Well, not
We'll figure
really.
it out.
I mean, it really means the same thing, but alright.
Yeah, but
He'll do a full innuendo film
in French.
Yeah,
In
the
French.
French.
I'm
I'll do-
gonna.
I'll
You
Google
are going to be
translate
the
the whole
only
thing.
one who understands.
Yeah. I'll do my next recap in French, and you won't understand a thing, but it'll be fun.
There has
We
to
could
be
learn
cool.
French.
at least one or two people listening that could get it, and it's good for them.
I think it'll be fun. Anything else on this book?
There was the one thing, like, is it weird that Crookshanks and Sirius are hanging out at all?
I feel like there's a great.
What do you mean by
I feel like
weird?
there's a great animated animal movie waiting to happen, where it's just Sirius and Crookshanks off on adventures, like Fox and the Hound style.
Homeward Bound.
Yeah, I picture the Grim Sirius Black like pulling himself along by his paws. He's like sliding across the ground. It's very very appropriate for an animated film.
Yeah.
Damn.
I do love the divination scene so much. Like,
Yeah.
there's a bird on this table. There's going to be loads of fog tonight. And then Hermione storming out is just...
Yeah, just endless dunking on
Yeah.
Trelawney.
We've all I'm pretty sure we've all had that class where all we wanted to do is just leave, like up and just drop it.
I mean, I'm a Ravenclaw,
like-
so...
They don't do that.
Well, good for
Stick
you.
it out. I mean,
no, I probably
yeah.
have.
We've heard.
Definitely sports classes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a
There's
sports class in Hogwarts.
Dedicated sports class where you
I
go
don't
to
know,
school?
PE or what? I don't
Oh.
know. What
They learned to ride the
Bill-
broom the one time.
non-Jewish
Built
school? She
just
just called
for
it
PE.
gym. And we went and ran around sometimes and threw balls at each other, and then we went back upstairs.
It's not very different.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's like-
Okay,
Physical,
cool. I was afraid I missed out on something.
in which I was not educated one bit.
All right. Anything else on the Quidditch final? Yeah, I think it's a great chapter. It's really a really nice emotional high before shit hits the fan in the last part of this book.
I'd forgotten which chapters exactly we were reading, and I was like, well, it's interesting how like delineated it is, because I was like, well, I'm clearly not going with like the prediction, like that's just like a different phase of the book than we're in right now. So it's interesting to like look at it. How are we gonna do the 4th and 5th books though?
I
Oh
don't
my
know.
god, I don't know.
We'll just suffer.
We can discuss that in 2022.
Yeah,
And
right.
then, like, yeah. And
It's a little
also,
optimistic, but
and also like what, like we're not gonna get wins anytime soon probably, so like why don't we just take our time?
well, why did you have to bring that up?
It's not even an
Welcome back
thing right
to
now.
Hey, the
podcast.
show's coming on.
I am very excited for the show this
Ugh.
coming weekend.
Yes.
Worse. It's like actually worse that the show is on.
Fuck the show.
Different.
I
different.
do
I
miss-
say fuck the show, but at the same time, I'm like, ooh.
Same.
Game of Thrones.
I do miss the excitement and vibrancy that was back in the day of seasons like up till 4 or so. It was so
Yeah.
much fun.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I'm still
stopped
pumped.
watching after season 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, I didn't
Well-
watch last season or this season, so
I'm so pumped still.
Well, that's good.
This is my meth, okay? I know I shouldn't be liking it, but at the same time, I can't. I'm just going to just ride this high and just see what happens.
Game of Thrones, it's like meth.
It's not even a matter of liking it to me. It's just that I want the first story to be the one from the book.
I want closure. I just want closure of any kind I can find.
Yeah, but like I will watch it if it's ever settled that we're never getting anything more, you know. But as long as I have some kind of hope, I will wait for the book.
I just feel like, for me, I think I'm addicted to like the dialogue around the show almost more than I like enjoy the show.
Well, it's also kind of just for your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that too. But like, if I was really, really like you guys, like some people, not you guys, some people, my brother and sister are absolutely adamant that they won't hear anything that happened in the show after like season 4. It's actually really funny because last year they had an episode of SNL where they did a sketch about, I think Jason Momoa was hosting, and it was like talking to all the dead people on Game of Thrones, and Brienne showed up, and my sister flipped. Brienne's dead. Wait, is she dead? Yeah, so she couldn't deal with that. But if I was really that adamant, I'd probably give up covering it. But I like talking about this stuff. You know, it's like we sort of, not that we're done with book discussion, because there always is more to talk about there. But like, I don't know.
The well runs dry a bit with book discussion, because it feels like for a lot of the time we just kind of go back to the same old thing, while at least this is providing like something new to talk about.
Right. I completely understand. Like, I kind of envy you guys for that, but I still hold to to the fact that it's like there are
maintain your principles, Ned. Maintain your principles.
Yeah. No, but I mean, in my head, it's like this character is either dead or alive, and if I see in the show that it dies, it's gonna become a dead, even though I know it might be different in the book, and I just don't want my headcanon to be changed by the show.
Yeah.
But I haven't really been looking in. How many reviews and things are VOK planning to do this year?
Yeah.
Or don't you guys know?
I have no idea. I mean, at least Dragoncast is happening, but
I believe the intention is to continue with all the whole mix of all three.
Yeah, I think everything's just in discussion right now.
Yeah, I think some people have to step up with like editing or whatever, or hosting, but otherwise, yeah.
Chances are.
So I'm kind of the opposite as you, Michal, where I am looking forward to watching the show without engaging in the reaction land. Like, that's my intention. And I think Bina's talked about this also. I'm not going to do the whole thing where, like, I wait until it's all out, but I just don't want to engage as much with that stuff. And there's some appeal to it, but I also find it a little bit exhausting.
Oh, it is exhausting, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, so with that, I think we can wrap it up. We spent like 10 minutes on Game of Thrones, which is fine. But Harry Potter discussion has concluded this time around. We will pick up next time with the final, I want to say, 7 or 8 chapters of Prisoner of Azkaban, which is a really exciting group of chapters.
We have to do that.
They are very fun.
I know I'm going to be listening to myself saying this in December of 2019 when the episode is edited and comes out, but I would really like to record the next one soon.
I will endeavor to make that possible. We can finish up Prisoner of Azkaban at the very least. All right. Speaking of, we mentioned Game of Thrones is returning soon. We'll have a lot of casts up on that coming with the premiere next weekend. Any other casts people want to mention that are?
You really are planning to edit quickly if you're going to have this up before Game of Thrones comes out.
I'm going to try.
Harry Potter 2020.
Yeah. Anything else people want to plug? I assume Game of Thrones is going to take most of the time.
And for those looking forward to the second installment of Dunk and Egg Full Castle recording, don't get excited. Don't get excited.
Paul, I'm going to drive up to you.
Keep looking.
Help me dig it out of its grave and try to reanimate it, because I don't know if I can save it.
You just need Patrick, right?
Oh yeah, but it's also just like a Frankenstein's monster of many audio files.
You should just redo the whole thing.
Podcasts
No one
over.
remembers what it was like.
I honestly,
There you
I
go. Yeah,
am
just
tempted
redo
just
it.
to a redo and just like pound it out. So maybe.
I'm sure
Although,
Michal
how many-
loves
I mean,
that
I could-
idea.
Although
Once
how many
I-
people that were
yeah, I
involved
can-
in it are no longer like around the community.
That's fair. Could we recast or have to recast?
It was recorded that long ago?
It was a long
2
time
years
years.
ago.
2 years.
People who aren't involved anymore, though.
Damn.
I think everyone still who was involved in that are involved in this.
Mayhaps that's the best call. I'm happy to do Lord Ashwood again.
Mayhaps.
I do declare. Welcome to my tourney.
I just want to do John the Fiddler. That's all I ask.
I am. That's why I keep kind of looking back at this because I'm like, I got to get to Mystery Night. I just want the Mystery Night to happen.
Dude,
You
it's the
could just
best
skip
one.
the second one.
Yeah, just do that separately.
Whoa, no.
It's heresy. How dare.
Heresy.
You could just like, you could just like post some highlights.
A clip show.
Basically all Rohane Weber's scenes and then like the battle.
Do you want just the scenes of John the Fiddler being gay around Dunk? Well, here you go.
I want to hear about the Checky Lion.
Whoever
Well,
said,
I've never jousted with someone as big as you.
yeah, see, there we go. You're already getting there. Good lord.
I think the first time I like yelled at the podcast of Ice and Fire was when they were reviewing the Mystery Night, and Kyle was like, "Oh, he's a man. He's just interested in Dunk as a fellow knight."
Guys being dudes.
Dude.
That was tough. That was a tough listen. No doubt.
George is not subtle about this.
About as clueless as Dunk when it comes to that.
Uh,
Yeah, I think he came around eventually, right?
Maybe. I haven't
Probably
listened.
came
that was
some
like
way.
5 years ago or something. So
All right, we'll call it there for the show for the 6th installment of the Great Harry Potter reread. Thank you all very much for joining me for this. If you want to check out more Vassals of Kingsgrave, you can do so at bokpodcast.com. You can check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, all the places, and you can come chat with us on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums, which are very easy to find. Thank you all again, and we'll be back again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
wait, which trivia contest?
The one on Twitter where you were all mad that Hufflepuff beat out Raven.
Oh, shut up.
Oh.
I'm just
I'm
one person, okay?
What was this?
It's the Alexa. Alexa has a Harry Potter Audible quiz that you can take, and it asks you like 3 questions, and then you get a bonus question if you get them all right, which I usually do. But for some reason, despite all my efforts, Ravenclaw is still behind Hufflepuff.
Just don't underestimate Hufflepuff. Look out.
I
Or
will.
how big a
I will
sample size are you?
proudly underestimate Hufflepuff.
Well, I mean, you just like this is a robot that's asking you questions.
Magic isn't real, Michal.
What?
Excuse me.
Wow.
Voldemort's birthday.
I
No,
didn't know
but
it.
my birthday's the Battle of the Pelennor Field, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Oh, mine's Christopher Columbus's birthday.
Good for
Sweet.
you.
Fuck that guy.
Imperialist asshole.
That means you're an imperialist, Casey.
I was like, this is such a great day to have my birthday until I was like 13.
Wait a minute.
Reality.
It all came crashing down.
Yeah.
Just go around with everyone's birthday.
Yeah, let's do that.
Mine is actually the death day of Julius Caesar, so there we go.
Mine is the same as the Marines.
Cool.
No, because anytime a Marine hears what my birthday is, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the birthday of the Marines." And I'm like, yeah, I know that, dude.
Let's see if there's anything fun for my birthday.
I'm looking at that. But it's just the bunch of names.
Yeah.
Knowing my luck, it's also
Ooh.
like Saint's Day, like Saint Falaban.
It's
Oh, there's gotta be one.
it's same day Jane Austen died. Yay. All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a list of people who died. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Damn it, my birthday's also related to Christopher Columbus. It's the day he returned to Spain from his first trip to the Americas.
Well,
Damn it, Christopher Columbus, why are you so here?
He's everywhere.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Do you read A Song of Ice and Fire in French?
I read it in French at first, and then I didn't have book 5 because it wasn't translated yet, and I was like, well, so I'm gonna get book 5 in English, and that's actually the very first thing I ever read in English, I think. I mean, the first book I decided to read in English, and after that I read the whole thing in English. Yeah.
Well, power to you, because I can do that in another language.
I mean,
Nope.
frankly, it's just so much easier for someone who's not English to read English than for someone who's English to read another language, I think, because just everything I watch and see and hear is in English. Like, I watch my TV shows in the original language, and that's basically always English, and so on and so on. So it's like, it's everywhere.
Thanks to English Trading Tea Company.
Thanks to all those imperialists.
Yay!
Thanks, empires.
Thanks, Casey's birthday.
Well, he wasn't English.
Nope.
Okay, but
An Italian who
Italian.
represented Spain.
I thought he was Portuguese.
No, he
No.
wasn't Portuguese.
He was Italian.
He's
Oh my
Italian,
God.
and he wasn't even involved with the Portuguese. The French or the Spanish sent him over.
He was Italian who went to the Portuguese, but the Portuguese were already like, no, we go around Africa. So then
We got all the
Spain.
African ports.
All right.
All right, we'll save that for the colonial cast.
Colonialism cast brought to you by a bunch of white people.
Look forward to that coming up.
Oh no.
Happy to discuss colonialism today. First item on our list is I'm sorry, and we're done. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Vassals of Kingsgrave.
Harry Potter and the White Guild. Chapter 1. Oh shit.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
No, he's in Chicago. It's good. Chicago's good.
There's nothing good about Chicago.
Ooh,
Wow.
Zander.
where does the vitriol
Whoa.
come from against Chicago?
It's a New York thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's the whole
Sorry,
pizza
that was
thing.
like involunary.
Hey,
All right,
I
At
like New
at least
York.
they don't slice their bagels into
Yeah, at
little.
least
What
Ooh.
was that about?
That was deepest villainy.
I think of all the cities happy to see St. Louis getting all this shit, Chicago was just like, yes, shit on them. They are nothing.
Hey.
Also,
Yes.
I will agree with the whole pizza thing because did I cut
Chicago
out?
pizza's better.
Okay,
We're doing
Xander?
this. We're doing this.
my bud, I love Chicago. I love being here. However,
I swear to God, don't say New York pizza's better.
Chicago pizza last night during our drunk D&D session,
Well, that was dumb.
we're like, hey, let's order pizza. We were all thinking, hey, usual Chicago style pizza. And am I cutting out? I feel
No.
like
No, but
No,
that's
you're
totally
here.
fine.
I'm very
here.
silent.
I'm
This is very
listening.
silent.
We're enraptured.
I'm ready for
We're
this.
enraptured.
He ordered Chicago style pizza, and all of us made a collective groan because that is not what we wanted while we were drinking. We were not wanting something that we eat with a knife and fork. We wanted to hold the pizza
Whoa.
in hand.
Who
Why would
who
you eat it
eats
like
it with a knife and fork?
Don't
Are you
you-
telling me he got deep
Fucking
dish?
sauce everywhere.
Are you telling me he got deep dish?
Yeah, deep dish Chicago
Yeah.
style.
No,
That's
no,
what
no, that's
Chicago
not
is known
Chicago
for.
style. Yeah, it's known
Yes,
for
it is Chicago
it's
style.
known
Jesus
for
Christ.
deep dish, but deep dish
Okay,
is the
guys.
worst.
Yeah, let's.
See, I was just gonna say that like what you rolled the dice and they went into the pizza and then you lost them forever and the game was over.
Literally, that could have happened. There was just so much fucking sauce on top. It was
I
like
think
it's like a glorified bread bowl, kind of. It's
I think
just
Jon
Said
Stewart
that.
calls it a swimming pool for rats.
I did enjoy that. John.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have, like, a proper garbage system and, you know, a grid system.
We have a grid system.
It didn't look as good as
It's a
yours.
weird grid system, because you guys have islands.
It just didn't look as like magnificent, and like there's no cool bridges, and you just have like a big lake.
Oh, we're all about the bridges.
It's the biggest
Oh, I'm
thing.
sorry.
You just have a big lake. Come on.
I'm sorry that we are like, oh, this large mass of continuous land. This would be a great place to put a city, rather than, hey, let's put a bunch of places on this fucking group of islands.
Well, guess what? There was nowhere to trade back in the day, except if you were near.
You're stolen from the Dutch!
Yeah, I actually sang the song New Amsterdam yesterday. It was fun.
Oh,
New Amsterdam was
Would New York
her
be
name.
as popular if it was still New Amsterdam?
sounds fun.
Yeah,
Why
we're
not?
crazy about those
People love
European
Amsterdam.
things. I mean, half.
Amsterdam.
No,
is
you
very
can't really
cool.
say it with a New York accent. Like, New
But it-
Amsterdam.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
I mean, we still have Amsterdam Avenue. So
Oh, Amsterdam
Ooh.
Avenue, that famous street.
it's not as straight as
What
an
is-
avenue.
It's a street.
There's a big
it's
difference.
It's a roadway.
Oh.
It's actually
Oh,
adjacent
the
to
avenue.
Columbus Avenue.
It's actually twice as
Oh.
wide as a normal
Oh,
street.
Now I'm like imagining Paul like coming to New York. I don't even really know what you look like, but just like standing in
Look
Times
at me
Square.
getting angry at you in New York. That's just gonna be the difference. It's gonna be me yelling at people in Times Square like, "You're not better than us."
He'll be standing next to a garbage pile.
That'll be weird though, because the only other people in Times Square are also
Yeah.
blacks, so-
True. Yelling at a guy from like Topeka, Kansas. I'm here to see the big buildings.
Literally everybody in Times Square.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. I feel like Zander's kind of just drinking right now, and whenever we mention a place, he just goes, "Oh, fuck that place."
I mean, you're not
Gestures
half
his
wrong.
the show.
wildly spilling foam everywhere. Just, fuck Seattle.
Fuck Christopher Columbus. Fuck the TV show.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana can kiss my ass.
Hey.
Oh, is this making it into the
Hey.
podcast?
Oh, I'm hoping that at least some of this discussion gets put in.
Some of this will.
I kind of don't really understand what's going on.